So the Reason Rally, the largest gathering of non-religious people in history, sounds like the sort of thing I'd like to be part of. I wonder what their issues are. LGBTQ equality? What? That's their lead issue. Well, what else they got? Well, they got climate change. That's hopeful. Still not really seeing anything for the non-religious, though. What else they got? Women's reproductive rights. What? And that's it. That's all of their issues. Honestly, that's sounding more like a social justice warrior pride march than the largest gathering of the non-religious in history. Well, maybe social justice warriors is their core demographic. I'm sure if we take a look at their last meeting, it'll be a complete minority fest with equal numbers of men and women, blacks, Asians, and of course liberally decorated with LGBTQ folks. Let's take a look, shall we? Well, to be fair, not everyone is a white male. However, I've got an itching suspicion that a lot of those people wouldn't turn up to a Reason Rally where the lead item on the agenda, the number one thing the largest gathering of non-religious people in history has to protest is LGBTQ equality. I've got a feeling a lot of those folk might think that there's bigger fish to fry. But you know, this is all starting to sound rather familiar. I wonder if, say for instance, they've got a code of conduct. Why yes they do. Well, it says it's a family-friendly event. Oh, and surprise, surprise, it's an LGBTQ-friendly event. In fact, the only people that it doesn't say are welcome are straights, whites, and males. Now, I wonder what the details of those policies are. The Reason Rally Coalition does not tolerate harassment of or by participants in any form.
80% of our colleges and universities restrict speech in ways that the government could not do.
Prohibited conduct may include, but is not limited to,
colleges can also limit free speech with something called speech codes.
Harassment related to gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, age, religion. Holy crap! These folks would wet their pants if they saw an episode of South Park. What else they got? Stalking, harassing photography, or recording. Which is really interesting, seeing as at the bottom of the page we have this. Attendees of the Reason Rally and related events provide their consent to the Reason Rally Coalition to have their pictures taken or be included in audio-video recordings of the event. This media, including pictures, audio, and video, may be used in multiple forms of promotion, including the web, social networks, print and television, or media coverage. Attendees waive any and all rights to review or approve any use of this content and expect no compensation. Attendees who have brought guests under the age of 18 to the Reason Rally 2016 are agreeing to these terms on behalf of their underage guests. So yeah, the conduct policy states that if you don't want someone to take your photograph, and they do, then that's harassment, and the nanny conduct policy will throw them out of the event for that. Except just by being at the event, you've waived all rights to privacy, even that of your children. Yeah, you're not exactly leaving an impression that the largest gathering of the non-religious in history is exactly a professionally run affair. The Reason Rally Coalition recognises that mockery of religion occurred at the Reason Rally 2012 and welcomes such discussion. However, the harassment of individuals for their religious beliefs will not be tolerated. You've got to be kidding me. So bad-mouthing all of the followers of a religion is fine, but doing it to an individual is prohibited. So in summary, the spontaneous conflicts like that between me and Eric Hovind.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, Thunderfoot has just given up atheism.
No, yeah, and Eric here has just accepted that his God doesn't exist.
No, because this coming from a man.
Hallelujah, brother, it's good to have you on there.
Would be prohibited under the more politically correct and enlightened Reason Rally Code of Conduct. The even more ironic thing is the religious could turn up at the event and mock pitilessly the non-religious, because there's absolutely nothing in the conduct policy against mocking the non-religious. However, if the non-religious mock back, they can be thrown out for that. Smart. Racist, sexist, homophobic, or transphobic conduct will not be tolerated.
All white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic, all members of a majority are biased against the members of the minority.
Great, so homophobic comments are not welcome, but there is absolutely no prohibition on heterophobic conduct. And transphobic conduct will not be tolerated, but there's absolutely no prohibition on cisphobic conduct.
So it's come to my attention that there's been some controversy surrounding some 3 little words, and I don't understand why. It's just a bunch of people having hissy fits that their status quos are being challenged. Die, cis, scum. So for those of you who've been living under a privileged rock your entire life and don't know what cis means, it's short for cisgender.
The Reason Rally Coalition understands that human interactions can be complex and confusing. You have got to be kidding me. The largest gathering of the non-religious in history, and they need a code of conduct that would be more in place at a kindergarten. Because the Reason Rally Coalition understands that human interactions can be complex and confusing. I mean, how on earth did they ever convince someone like Penn Jillette to come to an event like this?
Teller and I are easy to offend. Some clergy claim that the tsunami in South Asia was a test by a loving God. Just shoot us. We're all offended all the time, and we don't have a fucking right not to be offended. A free country is a marketplace of ideas, and college should be more free, not less.
And yeah, you know what else you would have thought would have been a bastion of free speech? Something calling itself the Reason Rally. And just in case you're in any doubt about this event, this is part of the Code of Conduct. Please listen to trans with a little star. Please listen to trans people's needs and stories when they're volunteered. But please respect people's privacy and boundaries, and do not ask questions that you wouldn't ask of anyone else. Do not make assumptions about other people's gender identity or expression.
The Ace and Arrow trilogy will cover some Ace and Arrow relationship terms like queer platonic relationships or QPRs, zucchini, squish, as well as some asexual slang like aces of hearts, spades, clubs, or diamonds, a sexy no romo, and additionally concepts like sex drive or libido, stone, paper, and paper mache.
Please ask which pronouns a person prefers. Do respect and call people what they ask you to call them. Sorry boys, that's just a deal breaker. Although part of me is tempted to go and just let everyone know that my personal pronouns are Your Highness, just to get everyone who doesn't respect my personal pronouns thrown out for hate speech. And you know, it's a shame, because I would have liked to have seen a meeting for grown-ups, a meeting where you could offend people, especially if you're going to do it in Washington. You know, those who deny other people freedom do not deserve it themselves. Now, maybe part of this was the early organisation of the event was left in the hands of Sarah Moorhead, who seems to have made an absolute mess of the last event she organised. Or maybe it's the involvement of the American Humanist Association, who recently, in a move eerily reminiscent of Atheism Plus, yeah, you remember Atheism Plus, just launched their Black Humanist, Feminist Humanist, and LGBT Humanist alliances. I mean, never mind the fact that all of these groups are actually the antithesis of humanism, or just how much they would freak out if someone dared to point out that in practice, they're probably best described as white male alliance, desperately trying to atone for the original sin of being born white and male.
Sorry I'm male! I'm sorry I'm white! I'm sorry I'm male! Why?
Or how every other group that ever tried this intersectional approach got eaten alive by the infighting over who was the most oppressed group. I mean, there's a Black Humanist Alliance and a Feminist Humanist Alliance, but there's no Black Feminist Humanist Alliance. That's so racist and sexist. I just can't. Even you privilege blacks and feminists with their own alliance, but do nothing for the most oppressed group of all, the black feminists. Indeed, I even sent a tweet their way saying, at American Humanists, black humanists, feminist humanists, LGBT humanists, so exclusionary. Why not cis humanists or Asian humanists? Why so xenophobic? To which, of course, they blocked me. God, they must really hate cis humanists and Asian humanists. So who's turning up to this event? Well, they got Bill Nye, and although I've never met the guy, I've been universally impressed by him. He's not just a presenter. He understands stuff, and understands it well. Carolyn Proko. Never heard of her? But hell, she was involved in the Cassini mission, and for that alone, she must have something interesting to say, because I still can't look at Saturn without thinking that there's a man-made probe on the surface of Titan, the largest moon orbiting that planet.
There we go. Is that little dot on the right, that guy. Now that's the brightest of the Saturn moons, which is Titan. And the amazing thing about Titan is most of the other places that we've actually landed on, you know, Mars, Venus, whatever, the moon, you can actually see them with the naked eye. Titan's interesting in that Titan you need a telescope to see. And this is the thing that always amazes me. That's Titan there. There is a man-made object on that little dot there.
Then they got Johnny Depp, who is an A-line actor. Doesn't do much for me, but whatever. Margaret Cho, LGBT activist. Great, just what we need. Amber Heard? Never heard of her. But Wiki informs me that she's Johnny Depp's wife. But a social activist and LGBT rights activist. Great. Lawrence Krauss. Cool. A real publishing scientist. Good for them. And then right next to him, we've got Cara Santa Maria, the girl who thinks that conservation of energy can be sidestepped as long as someone claims they've got some undisclosed patented process. Then Penn Jillette, who is a world-grade arsehole, but genuinely entertaining and interesting. How on earth they managed to convince him to turn up to a family-friendly event like this, I'll never know. Likewise, Kelly Carlin, daughter of George Carlin, who would have been expelled from the Reason Rally for being offensive before he had even opened his mouth.
And when you're around super sensitive people, you cannot relax and be spontaneous because you've no idea what's going to upset them next. And that's why I've been warned recently, don't go to most university campuses.
Then Eugenie Scott, who I really can't say enough good things about. A natural leader, fantastic speaker, and very pleasant company. Me, I was actually really sad when she retired from the National Center for Science and Education. Then last but not least, John Delancey, the enigmatic Q from Star Trek. And I am sure that he dies a little inside whenever a fan of sorts says that sort of thing. But whatever, I thought he was fantastic as Q and wouldn't mind seeing what he has to say. So did I really make this video bad-mouthing the Reason Rally? Well, in part, yes, and for good reason. But honestly, the shit show's been so incompetently publicised that this video alone will probably double the number of people who know of its existence. I mean, hell, I've barely heard of the largest gathering of the non-religious in history, and I've got to be one of the larger non-religious type YouTube channels. And you know what, Reason Rally organisers? If people don't know that you're having an event, it's going to be pretty hard for people to turn up to it. You know, if you'd actually had some experience with viral media and the such like, you could have at least invited one person off of YouTube. Seriously, how can you organise something like this in 2016 and not have someone from YouTube? I know, all the popular non-religious YouTubers, just like George Carlin, would have been expelled before they even got to the stage by the permanently triggered. But hell, at least with their support, someone might have at least known about the largest gathering of the non-religious in history. I mean, just to keep this all in perspective, the largest gathering of the non-religious in history had a turnout of somewhere between 8 and 30,000 people. And you know what? Just the daily viewership of this channel is somewhere between 1 and 200,000. And they didn't invite a single YouTuber to this event. As for me, would I turn up? Hell no. Not with that code of conduct. I mean, I might have gone for some, on-the-fly chats with people like Eric Hovind or Ray Comfort, because they're always kind of fun. But in reality, this would simply violate all of the convention rules now, which is kind of ironic that I would have more restrictions on what I can do and say at the largest gathering of the non-religious in history than I would have had with my previous conversations with folks like Westboro Baptist Church. And as it turns out, I've been bitchingly busy for the last few months and simply don't feel like busting a gut to go and get nannied and treated like an infant at the Reason Rally, where their first line item is LGBTQ whatever equality. You have to respect people's pronouns and listen to trans stories. I mean, damn, I don't expect people to label me with their sexuality. I no more expect people to come up and tell me their cis stories than I expect people to come up and tell me their trans stories. But ignoring all of the crap, I've got to admit, some of the speakers here do seem pretty interesting.